There is a man in a prison cell who does not know that today is the day.
He has been in Egypt for over a decade. He was 17 when his brothers sold him. He is somewhere in his late 20s now. The text does not tell us exactly. What it tells us is that he has been waiting. In Potiphar's house, waiting. In the prison, waiting. For 2 years since the cupbearer walked out and forgot him. Waiting again. Waiting without a timetable. Waiting without an explanation. Just waiting. He does not know that 2 miles away, in the most powerful palace in the ancient world, a man has just woken up in a cold sweat. He does not know that the dream this man just had, this nightmare that has left the most powerful ruler on earth staring at his ceiling in the dark, is the dream that was written for Joseph to interpret before Joseph was even born.
He does not know any of this. He is in a prison cell. The door is still locked. The morning has not come yet. But it is coming. When Pharaoh finally sleeps again, he dreams. And the dream is this. He is standing on the bank of the Nile. The river is vast and slow and dark in the early morning light. And out of the water, rising up out of the deep, come 7 cows. And the text says something very specific. They are fat, healthy and fat and sleek. And they come out of the river, and they begin to graze in the reeds along the bank.
And then the 7 gaunt, ugly cows eat the 7 fat, healthy ones. And when they have finished eating them, Pharaoh notices something that will haunt him when he wakes. You cannot tell. You cannot tell that the fat cows were ever there. The gaunt ones look exactly as they did before, as if the eating made no difference at all. As if the plenty was swallowed and left no trace. Pharaoh wakes, and his spirit is troubled. The text is precise about this. Not just afraid, not just unsettled. The word is troubled. The quality of a deep disturbance that will not resolve itself by morning. The Hebrew word vatipaem rucho, pronounced vatipaem rucho, which literally means his spirit was struck or beaten, like a drumbeat. The root pa'am relates to striking, pulsing, hammering. This is not a mild unease. It is an agitation that pulses through the whole person. The same root appears in Daniel 2, verse 3, when Nebuchadnezzar is disturbed by his dream, and in Judges 13, verse 25, when the Spirit of God first stirs Samson. This word is used for moments when something beyond the ordinary has touched a person's inner world and left it vibrating. What this tells us about Pharaoh.
This is a man whose entire being knows that what he saw was not an ordinary dream. He cannot dismiss it. It is still happening inside him, even after he is woken up.
He lies in the dark and waits for morning. And then he falls asleep again and dreams again. The same structure, but different symbols. This time, grain.
Genesis 41, verses 22 to 24. In my dream, I saw 7 heads of grain, full and good, growing on a single stalk. After them, 7 other heads sprouted, withered and thin and scorched by the east wind. The thin heads of grain swallowed up the 7 good heads. I told this to the magicians, but none of them could explain it to me.
He sits with something he cannot understand, and nobody can help him.
And this is the moment. This is the moment that 2 years of Joseph's waiting has been moving toward. Not because anyone planned it, not because Joseph engineered it, but because the cupbearer is in the room. He has been in this room every day for 2 years, standing with his golden cup, serving Pharaoh his wine, going home, sleeping soundly, not once thinking about the Hebrew in the prison who told him what his dream meant. 2 years of forgetting. 2 years of Joseph in a cell, while this man lived his comfortable, restored life. And now he is standing in a room where Pharaoh has a dream nobody can interpret, and something moves in him.
Genesis 41, verse 9 to 13. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, "Today I am reminded of my shortcomings. Pharaoh was once angry with his servants, and he imprisoned me and the chief baker in the house of the captain of the guard. Each of us had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own.
Now a young Hebrew was there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he interpreted them for us, giving each man the interpretation of his dream. And things turned out exactly as he interpreted them to us. I was restored to my position, and the other man was impaled. Today, I am reminded of my shortcomings. It is the most understated confession in the Bible. 2 years late. Delivered not out of loyalty to Joseph, but because Pharaoh needs something, and the cupbearer happens to have a relevant piece of information. He is not doing this for Joseph. He is doing it because the timing makes it useful. And yet, the text does not stop to judge him for this. It just moves. Because this is how the story works, not through the virtue of the people in it, through the movement of something underneath and behind the people in it. The cupbearer forgot for 2 years, and now, at exactly the right moment, he remembers. The timing belongs to neither of them. Pharaoh does not hesitate. He sends for Joseph immediately. Joseph is in the prison when the guard comes. The text does not tell us what he is doing. It does not give us a scene of Joseph praying or hoping or doing anything spiritually notable. He is simply there, in the place where he has been, when the door opens. And they hurry him out. The text suggests urgency. They run him out of the dungeon. This is not a leisurely morning. Something has happened above him, in the world of power and palace, and it has sent a ripple all the way down to where Joseph is sitting. He does not know yet what it is. And then, and this detail is very easy to read past, but it matters enormously. The text says he shaved and changed his clothes. Think about what that means. This is a man who has been in a prison. His last act before standing before Pharaoh is to shave his face and change into clean clothing. 2 practical, mundane, entirely human acts of preparation before a moment that will change the entire trajectory of his life. He does not know that yet. He knows only that Pharaoh wants to see him. And so he shaves, and he changes his clothes, and he goes. Egyptian men of all classes shaved both head and face as a matter of hygiene, cultural identity, and status. Facial and head hair was associated with foreignness, mourning, or ritual uncleanness in Egyptian society. What it meant for Joseph. Joseph's shaving before entering Pharaoh's presence was not vanity, it was cultural translation. He was removing the visible marker of his foreignness and his imprisonment. He was preparing to be received by an Egyptian king on Egyptian terms. The deeper significance. Joseph has done this before. Every time he has entered a new environment, he has adapted without losing who he is. In Potiphar's house, adaptation. In the prison, adaptation. Now before Pharaoh,
the same instinct. He does not insist on being seen as a Hebrew. He makes himself receivable. This is not assimilation or the abandonment of identity. Joseph will later weep when he sees his brothers. He will reveal himself as the son of Jacob. The shaving is a preparation, not a transformation. The man inside the clean linen is the same man who was in the prison this morning.
He has been moving toward this room since he was 17 years old. Since the pit in Canaan, since Potiphar's house, since the prison, since the cupbearer walked out and forgot him for 2 years. Every single step, every injustice, every betrayal, every morning of waiting in a locked cell has been moving him toward this corridor, these doors, this morning. He does not know that yet. He just walks.
Pharaoh looks at him, and he says, "I had a dream, and no one can interpret it. But I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it." And Joseph says something that by now we recognize completely. He says, "I cannot do it. Not me. God will give Pharaoh the answer he needs." The same instinct as the prison, the same immediate deflection upward. I am not the source. God is. Tell me the dream, and we will find out what God says.
Genesis 41, verse 15 through 16. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I had a dream, and no one can interpret it. But I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it." "I cannot do it," Joseph replied to Pharaoh, "but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires."
Pharaoh tells him both dreams, the cows and the grain. And when he finishes, he adds something he didn't say to the magicians. "I told this to the magicians. None of them could explain it." He is saying, "You are my last option. The whole apparatus of Egyptian wisdom has failed. You are what is left." Joseph does not flinch, and the interpretation comes not as mystery or riddle, but as absolute, unhesitating. Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, "The dreams of Pharaoh are one and the same." In Genesis 41, verse 25-27, Joseph said, "God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good heads of grain are 7 years. It is one and the same dream. The 7 lean, ugly cows that came up afterward are 7 years, and so are the 7 worthless heads of grain scorched by the east wind. They are 7 years of famine. 7 years of abundance, then 7 years of famine." The same message in both dreams, confirmed twice, because, as Joseph says, the matter is fixed. It is certain. God has decided this and is about to do it. And then, without being asked, Joseph does something that is either remarkable boldness or remarkable faithfulness. He does not stop at the interpretation. He tells Pharaoh what to do about it. To take 1/5 of the harvest of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. They should collect all the food of these good years that are coming and store up the grain under the authority of Pharaoh to be kept in the cities for food. This food should be held in reserve for the country, to be used during the 7 years of famine that will come upon Egypt, so that the country may not be ruined by the famine. He is standing in a throne room. No rank, no title. He came from a prison cell this morning, and he is handing the most powerful man on earth a national economic policy. Pharaoh turns to his officials, and he says something that will have been extraordinary by every cultural, religious, and political standard of the ancient Egyptian world. He says, "Can we find anyone like this man, one in whom is the Spirit of God? A Pharaoh of Egypt, a god king, considered divine in his own culture and religion,
The living embodiment of Horus looks at a Hebrew slave who walked out of a prison this morning and says, "The Spirit of God is in him. I cannot find his equal anywhere."
And then he elevates him. In a single movement, a single speech, he takes a foreign prisoner with no land, no family, no title, no standing, and places him at the right hand of the most powerful empire on earth.
Genesis 41, verses 41 to 43. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt." Then Pharaoh took his signet ring from his finger and put it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in robes of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. He had him ride in a chariot as his second in command, and people shouted before him, "Make way!" Thus he put him in charge of the whole land of Egypt. The signet ring, the linen robes, the gold chain, the chariot, and a word shouted before him in the streets, "Make way!" This morning he was in a cell. This afternoon he is riding through the streets of the most powerful city in the ancient world, and people are clearing the road for him. 13 years, from the pit to the chariot, and it happened, the whole reversal, in a single morning.
Pharaoh gives him an Egyptian name, Zaphanath-Paneah. He gives him an Egyptian wife, Asenath, daughter of a priest of On. Joseph is no longer the Hebrew prisoner. He is the second most powerful man in Egypt. He has arrived, not into an easy life, but into the life his story was always building toward. And the text tells us his age, as if wanting to make sure we feel the full weight of what we are being told. It says, Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh.
He was 17 in the pit, 13 years. And somewhere inside those 13 years, in the darkness of the cistern, in the competence of Potiphar's house, in the long injustice of the prison, in the silence of 2 years of being forgotten, God was making something. It just didn't look like it from inside those years. It never does.
The 7 years of abundance come, and they are extraordinary. The land produces plentifully. The text strains for words to describe it. Joseph goes throughout Egypt, collecting grain from every harvest. He stores it in the cities, the grain of the fields surrounding each city held within it. He stores so much grain that he stops keeping records. The amount is beyond counting. Like the sand of the sea, the text says, beyond measuring.
And during those 7 years, 2 sons are born to Joseph. He names the first Manasseh. God has made me forget all my trouble and all my father's household. The second he names Ephraim. God has made me fruitful in the land of my suffering.
The land of my suffering. He calls it that even in the moment of his fruitfulness. He does not revise the story. He does not pretend the suffering was easy or that it didn't happen. He names his son after it. He carries both things at once, the fruitfulness and the suffering, and he does not make one cancel out the other. This is not the faith of a man who has forgotten the pit. It is the faith of a man who remembers it and is fruitful anyway. Then the 7 years of abundance came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began, just as Joseph had said. The famine was not just in Egypt, it spread across the whole region. Every country felt it. The land dried, the harvests failed, and people began to move toward Egypt, toward the one place that had prepared, toward the one man who listened. Joseph is 37 years old, second in command of Egypt.
a wife, 2 sons, an Egyptian name, a chariot, a signet ring. Everything the pit said was impossible, he now holds in his hands. And far to the north, in the land of Canaan, in an encampment where the food is running out, an old man hears that Egypt has grain. And he says to his sons, "Why do you just keep looking at each other? Go down to Egypt, buy grain, so that we don't die."
His sons, 10 of them. They don't know who is waiting at the other end of that journey. They haven't spoken his name in 20 years. They left him in a pit. They dipped his robe in the blood of a goat. They watched their father grieve and could not comfort him. They thought that story was over. It is not over. It is exactly where it was always going. We'll see you in episode 4 for the next part of the Joseph epic. Subscribe and hit that notification button.